Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be watching a video called Star Spangled Banner Story. I think, at least from my understanding, is that the Star Spangled Banner is the American national anthem. So let's check it out and comment, like, subscribe, and start. Guess I've never heard of it. Okay.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key.
Who was he?
He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the National Anthem. It is our song as an American. We go, however, to a ball game. We sing our church services, and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds and our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict.
He had independence.
With the mother country, Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners.
Negotiating the independence.
They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange.
Because he was a lawyer.
On the appointed day in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis.
Sounds fair.
Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity. Men.
That sucks.
And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free.
Yeah, but they are kept in cages.
He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight.
What?
It won't matter.
What do you mean?
And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies.
That sounds bad.
Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth.
Oh, no.
He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots.
Okay.
And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours.
That's awful.
He said, the war's over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He said, it's predominantly not a military fort. They said, don't worry about it. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart?
The Star Spangled Banner?
He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered. And you'll now be under British rule.
Of course, it means surrender, lowering the flag.
Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen. And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds.
Yeah, he could see them.
The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch.
So stressful.
As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset.
It looks beautiful, actually.
Suddenly, the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit.
Cannonballs.
And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, tell us where the flag is.
They were only
What have they done with the
Yeah,
flag?
they only cared about the flag.
Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into
3 hours? That's so much.
every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, it's still
Oh
up.
my God.
It's not down. The admiral came and he said, your people are insane. He said, what's the matter with them?
Yeah, they're insane.
He said, don't they understand this is an impossible situation? Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in
What?
the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees.
Oh, good phrase.
The admiral said, we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down. He said, we don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still
Yeah, it's
flying.
still
We don't
standing.
understand that. But he said, now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that
More
flag.
hours?
Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful.
I can only imagine.
All that he could hear was the men down below praying.
Oh. This is making me want to cry.
God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the
So all
rampart
night.
was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript.
Oh my God, it was still standing.
The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the
Incredible.
Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits.
Oh.
And when it had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant
Of course.
for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up
Yeah.
humanly
It was the symbol.
until they died.
This is so sad.
Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light
Oh.
what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last
Yeah, it was, yeah.
or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night
Yeah, it was all night.
that
the
the
battle.
flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave
It was still standing in the wind.
o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Yeah.
The debt was demanded. The price, it was paid.
Yes, it certainly was. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Yeah, this was very, very touching, very moving. I was about to cry at one point because it was a very emotional story. I thought at first, well, it certainly was. It was gonna be more of a straight story, more forward, just telling us the story about the flag or the national anthem. And so it certainly was a story, but it was very poetic in a way that I wasn't expecting. So it was making me kind of emotional. I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, I could see it was all about the symbol, and I could now, when at the end when they were reciting the words of the national anthem, I was like, oh, of course, yes, of course it rings a bell. And now I can understand what the words actually mean. And yeah, I had no idea. It was a battle, and it is a symbol of resistance. I think both the flag and the national anthem itself. I did not know that the person that wrote it was someone who witnessed this sort of battle. So that makes it a bit more important in a way, because it was someone that bear witness to what happened and who lived to tell the tale, and he didn't die. But apparently a lot of people died, which obviously incredibly sad, but they were all very strong in their convictions, which I think it's something very, again, very, very emotional. And I could see why the American sort of like spirit is like that, because that's where it's rooted in, right? It's all about, like they said, they would rather die than just spend their lives on their knees. I think it was something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. And of course, the flag and the Star Spangled Banner, that's what it represents. It represents strength, and it's a symbol of resistance, and a thing about we're not going to be let down. We're not going to be put in chains. We want our freedom, and yeah, it's very, very poetic, very touching. And yeah, I now every time I'm gonna be listening to the national anthem, I'm gonna be thinking about this story. Beautifully told, by the way. Like the paintings and all of that were beautiful. I'm wondering if it's recreations or if the paintings were actually made by someone who was there, or maybe they just asked people what it was like in the carnage and stuff, because it looked pretty awful. Obviously, a bunch of people died, but yeah, super glad that I got to learn the story behind it, and hopefully you did as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.